Okay. Hi, my name is Ivan Marovic, and I'm from Belgrade, from Serbia. And together with my friends, I was one of the founders and leaders of Otpor, the resistance movement that brought down Slobodan Milošević, our dictator, back in 2000. My story begins when I was a very young kid. I was still in high school, and Milošević was in power. And there was a first demonstration against Milošević. This was in 1991. And it's interesting, it was, let's say, 2 years after Tiananmen Square. But it ended the same way the Tiananmen Square ended. The Milošević regime sent the army and tanks and destroyed the demonstrations, or the pro-democracy demonstrations, in a matter of hours. And as I was growing up, the situation was, becoming worse and worse. We had a civil war and hyperinflation and economic sanctions and poverty and all that. So there was the need to bring down this regime because it was making the situation worse every day. So, but the problem was that when we tried to do it, it ended up with military intervention and tanks in the streets. So slowly we started connecting in a let's say, in a way that wasn't so obvious for the authorities, and getting together and trying to build, which we finally did, to build an underground resistance movement, which we called Otpor, which is a Serbian word for resistance. And Otpor was slowly building its strength through small victories, first at the university, trying to kind of limit the power of the deans and school principals, then slowly coming out into the streets in some smaller towns and cities, and finally turning into a mass movement that, let's say, managed to bring down Slobodan Milošević in 2000. So, if I recall, of course, the differences between Serbia and China are enormous, so I don't know if any of the things that I could say would be of help. Maybe not, but nevertheless, here is my message. There are certain things that we learned over the time while we were fighting against Milošević. And the first thing was that, it is important to rely on young people. And the reason why we succeeded was because we were organized as a youth movement. And youth movement, which doesn't mean just that members were young, but the leadership was also young. It had some benefits over like old style political organizing, because young people, they're not married, they don't have careers, and they don't have children, so they cannot be easily blackmailed or threatened or bullied as older people. So they're much braver, and for instance, they can do things that older people could never do because of that. Another thing is that young people can meet other young people much more easily than older people. So, for instance, it was very difficult for us to meet in person an officer, high-ranking officer of the army, or to meet in person some bureaucrat, high-ranking bureaucrat from the government. But to meet his son or daughter in person was easy. So this is how we reached to the elements of the regime and slowly worked on bringing them closer to our side. We worked actually on their children. So that was the way we reached it. So that's the first thing that we actually had discovered through our struggle. The second thing is we always tried and succeeded in remaining non-violent in our actions. That we didn't threaten the other side. We didn't threaten the police when they were arresting us. We were cordial and and we were polite to the police officers when we were arrested. At one point, Milosevic declared us a terrorist organization, and so ordered a sweep arrest of all the Otpor activists, all the members of the organization. And we were arrested by the police. But because we didn't threaten the police in any way, we didn't actually, we were of course arrested and put in jail, but we weren't suffering cases of torture like other political groups, because we managed to establish a relationship with the police. And that was important. And that leads me to another lesson that we learned from our struggle. That is, it is important to keep your people, your members, safe, not to put them at risk if it's not really necessary, not to waste their energy and to waste their lives on things that are not very important, or things that don't create certain they don't create certain I'll have to stop here because I'm distracted by it. Okay, so let me go back. It is important. That leads me to another lesson. That is, you have to keep your people safe. You have to keep your members safe from harm as much as possible, and not to risk their lives and their health for something that is not going to match the investment. That the risk they're going to take is going to be just too high for the benefit of the action. So it is important, you know, to grow slowly, not to grow too fast, so that you cannot handle the crackdown that is going to come when the authorities realize that you pose a threat. And to grow slowly means to create the capacity to withstand that crackdown when it happens. And so that's another thing. The third thing that we learned over the course of years is that, you know, it is important to create a unified front of, like, that many different people, different ideological backgrounds, different worldviews, different social status, they all need to be united in one front in order for the movement to be victorious. And we have a saying in Serbia: if you have two Serbs, you have three political parties. And the people are very factionalized, and they are very much, how shall I say, there are very big political and other differences among people. So working slowly in building these relationships between people and bringing them together in the united front, that actually was, I think, crucial for the success. Because when Milosevic confronted the whole population, it was such a huge crowd of people from all parts of the country that he couldn't do anything, and so he called in the police to disperse the demonstrations. But it wasn't just demonstrations in one square; they were all over the capital, in every street, everywhere. So the police couldn't disperse the demonstrations. And then he called in the army, but the army was, this time, unlike the previous demonstration, the army understood that the people who are in the army are recruits, so they belong to the same people that are in the street, and there's so many people that they cannot actually disperse them either, because they're all over the city. So finally, Milosevic realized that nobody is going to help him, and so he decided to step down, and so he stepped down without a single shot fired, and that was an important moment in our history. Because if you look at 200 years of modern Serbian history, every president or king of Serbia was either assassinated or had to run away to save his life. So we have a series of bloody coups and transitions. And so to have, for the first time, somebody step down with the use of non-violent methods and public pressure, and to step down without casualties, or without even him being killed, that was a huge success.
There was once a encounter with a policeman who beat you up, and you still remember his name. So what's the story?
Yes, well, I was at one point arrested. I mean, many times I was arrested, but at one point I was arrested, and they wanted to take my fingerprints and to take my photo. So the guy who was taking the photo, he slapped me several times, and then later I ran into him, after Milosevic was overthrown, and I found him, and because I needed my apartment was broken into, and there was burglary, and I needed the police to help me, investigate that, and so I encountered the same person who beat me up, and that was a funny encounter. But on the other hand, he felt sorry for what he did, and I felt no desire for revenge, because in the end we won, and we didn't win just for ourselves, but we win also for that policeman, because he now works in the police force that is not forced to beat its citizens. So even it's better for him today than it was when Milosevic was in power.
Do you have a message to the Chinese authorities who are still in power?
For the Chinese authorities.
Yes, like did you have a message for Milosevic when he was in power, when you were organizing the movement?
Yeah, well, we had a message for Milosevic when he was in power, and I think the same message can work for Chinese authorities, and that is, it is impossible to prevent people if they wish to be free. That is just not going to work, because you can only spend more and more effort and more energy in preventing them, but eventually they will prevail. And this was what happened in Serbia. He had to step down. There was no way he could avoid that. So that would be my message.
Thank you very much.
Okay.